Sawubona King.
Sure mfethu.
Unjani?
Ngiyaphila unjani?
Angiphilile khona wona muhle boy.
Ngiyabonga mfethu.
What is the fit inspired by today?
I guess I just wanted to look nice, honestly.
And you've definitely made the part. I understand like everything was made by you?
Yeah, you know this.
Oh, crazy.
Myself and Makama.
For sure. Like I mentioned, like you dabbled in making clothes. They know you primarily for being an artist and a curator. So I guess let's begin there, like from like, you know, what people began to know you for. Because I mean, the story is much more extensive because you were an academic first and then found the loving for art. I always feel your leg about this. I'm like, how is this math loving guy so crazy at art? And I think I've always found that fascinating about you, even getting to know you and the type of person you are. Yeah, bro, just give context to how that come in hand and how that merge. Because I mean, there's an art in being an academic too. You know, that's a part that a lot of people don't understand. You know, so take me through that, bro. Primarily,
I think, well, what I'm gonna say is, because I come from a very like academic background, like you just said, and I think that came primarily from that being the only thing that I could like become based on the information and knowledge that was available to me. Art as a career space didn't seem like something I could go into. So I guess the general plan was to go to school, study something that seemed serious or whatever, what that meant. And because in school I was just like a kid that performed really well, that kind of made sense. I've always like loved maths and science. I'm a very like logical thinker in some ways, I think. So yeah, so I moved to Cape Town with the intention of studying, getting my degree. Initially, I wanted to be a doctor, but within my first year, I could really like figure out that that's not who I actually. It just didn't connect, and then I had to like go figure out what other like majors I could do. Then I was like, okay, let me go into computer science. It's like, okay, I did that for a few years, and because while I was doing that, the creative side was always part of me, like but it was primarily through fashion, which like makes sense with like the clothes. I think that's where the creative journey kind of started. So like with styling, with the making clothes thing was something that happened in high school. These clothes are like 5, 6 years old. But yeah, as I just went on, I found myself more in the city. Allows you to really explore, and there's like so much more because my existence is coming from the east end of Joburg, it's Sakana versus Cape Town. Those spaces are completely different, and coming here, it's just like, you know, like that bubble pops and you realize there's so much
for
more,
sure.
you know what I mean?
For sure.
And that part of me that was like an artist found room to exist and to be. And long story short, I left academia to pursue art.
That's beautiful, bro. I'm glad you did. In many ways. Because I think so you haven't been painting all your life. Painting is only something that came like as of recent with you.
So I'm one of those people who lockdown was like a switch. That part of that collective space of like introspection and whatnot. Because I've always been I've always been a really good artist. Like in art class, I was one of those kids who like the teacher would use my art like as an example.
Exemplary.
Like putting it on the wall and stuff like that.
Kids, this is how it's meant to be done. Like Lebo.
I don't know about that.
Then
that's not what I'm saying.
Or you're the kid with the big smile that everybody knows, okay, this guy is going to set the blueprint in class. Everything he do, when it comes to maths and painting, like he's the guy.
I mean, in some ways, perhaps, because I mean, in academics, I wasn't the best.
Got you.
Like I was like top 10 and stuff, all of that kind of stuff. But when it came to art, like I felt like I was like really good. But that wasn't like really a big thing.
For sure.
I didn't think that would go anywhere.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, a few years ago, because I'd always had a curiosity with trying out paint. Yeah, and then at some point I just did. And then, excuse me, And then I just really loved it, and I found out that I'm really good at it. And I just kept surprising myself with every painting that I created. And with that came, obviously, you're an artist, you want to show your work.
For sure.
I wanted to be able to put my works up.
For sure.
But because I didn't really know how to go about that, because I've been like this UCT kid in like science, I didn't really know. I wasn't
what the channels were.
You know, like Hidden Campus and Michaelis were like completely set apart from. So just that whole culture, I knew nothing about.
For sure.
How do you get into gallery?
For sure.
I don't know. So that's where the whole curator thing came into the picture, with me being like, okay, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what doors to knock on. Even when I do knock, there aren't like a lot of doors opening.
For sure.
I guess the idea was, let me build something of my own space.
Before we come to the brainchild, which is obviously known as FEDE, I want to talk about your work first primarily, because I feel like obviously your painting celebrates South African people. I want to know, how has growing up in Sakana influenced the work you create?
Okay, so like just now I spoke about how I think like my life is this constant contrast of Itakane with Cape Town, because like I spend a lot of time here, and then a few times the year I'll go back to Itakane. And what that has done to me is like created this third space in which I feel I exist in. And my understanding is like informed by both that space and this space. So that naturally just filters itself into like my work. Whether it's like me trying to communicate how like certain things are like weird, like the different socio-economic standards or like completely different, or like how the racial dynamics are completely different. Like it's just like you a part of this large population of black people. That's what's normal. Although even though you went to like a white school, just demographics are completely different. You come to Cape Town and it's like, I'm trying to take a walk on the promenade and it's like, I'm a minority. And for me, the first time I like saw that, it like blew my mind. I was like, what? It's South Africa. How is this a thing, right? So naturally, I think I have a lot of opinions on things like that, and painting becomes a space where I get to voice those opinions and those thoughts. And in some of my paintings, that stuff comes out. Like in the beginning, a lot of them were like touched on that. A lot of them were like had black bodies, but
for sure,
I think that's just a result of me being a black person. Like my understanding of a person comes from me, so that naturally made its way into my painting.
For sure.
But I think recently I want to try and explore different things. Like a recent painting of mine explores love. You know what I mean? Because like life consists of so much more. Yeah, I want that to be expressed in my paintings as well.
So having that realization or identity of what kind of work you wanted to produce, you sort of knew what you wanted to contribute from an artistical painter side, right? But then there was also this dying desire of yours of wanting to have a space where you can curate and have works and have artists like yourself exist in my black minority Cape Town, you know? It's called FEDE, which means sure, it is what it is. FEDE, let's go, you know? Did you intentionally want that space to have such an easy feel identity? What was your intention with curating a space, like, and name it something that is so, I can't even like describe it, but like when you hear it, it feels true, it feels home, you know?
I think FEDE kind of, it's meant to be something that speaks to like maybe like the more granular parts of like the exhibition spaces in terms of like how they feel. So when you say the word FEDE, it just speaks to like Totital, which for me I consider to be like my first language, because that's just the language I first knew how to speak, right? In that, like looking at it through that, for me it was just meant to be something that always speaks to where I come from. So I see FEDE as something that will exist in any space of the world, but calling it FEDE makes sure that we can always trace it back to Itakane, for instance. It's also kind of it assures even myself, you know, someone from where I come from can do things on like a global scale. So it's meant to, years down the line, kind of be able to, you can trace it back, you know. But in terms of like the granular aspects of the exhibition space, because coming to Cape Town, finding people who speak like me is always like a very special moment. I even looked this up, and apparently it's an actual phenomenon where, for the lack of a better word, where when people who speak that language find each other in different spaces outside of where it comes from.
Because we live in a very code switchy kind of Cape Town.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So when you find those people who are like, dog, come on, why are you here? You know what I mean? And there's like organic warmth that exists between you, and you've just met, you don't know each other. So that feeling is something that's meant to be part of FEDE. That's something that's meant to be part of. Like when you walk into the exhibition space, it's meant to feel that way. It's meant to feel comfortable. And that also just kind of is trying to address the whole idea of art spaces feeling cold and classist and feeling unwelcoming and like hyper exclusive. That is like literally and like intentionally trying to go against that. Yeah.
Yo, with that being said, then like how would you describe your responsibility as a curator? And explain to me, how do you separate this two? How do you separate the two from being a painter and, you know, focusing on trying to, you know, make works that speaks of a, you know, a certain message, a certain passion, a certain story that obviously you passionate about, and then how do you balance that with the responsibility of being a curator? And could you explain that responsibility?
I think, yeah, there's definitely like a separation between the two, which I have to like undergo, especially when I'm curating. Like I kind of have to, in some ways, have to put myself aside because I'm curating a space that's inclusive of other ideas and other tastes, right? Because you're creating a space. That's how I contextualize curating. It's like space making. So it's a very like empathetic process in which you have to think about other people and like cater to their feelings. And like if we put the chairs here and here, how are people gonna feel? Whereas when I'm painting, it's like me in the room with like music and like my cup of tea. It's like for me, you know what I mean? So there's a separation in like my mind states when I'm working in either space. But I think what makes it flow well, and what makes it flow well is that it happens seasonally. So like I'll practice either one in different seasons. So like for the past few months, my mind has been in a space of in a curatorial space, and I haven't been creating works at all. Whereas now the FEDE show is about to close, I want to go away and just spend some time alone to like paint and be in that frame of mind. But in terms of the responsibility, I think it's just a different level of empathy that I have to apply when I'm curating as opposed to when I'm painting. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. It does. I think for like the way you summed it up so beautiful and so beautifully. Sorry. I think for any art form or medium, there's a certain level of love and empathy that comes with it, and you being in a position of, you know, having to show empathy in curating spaces for other people, I think is the biggest point that we can take from that answer you've given. You know, like it begins and starts with empathy. You know, and I think paying attention to those minor things, or like, how is this gonna make people feel? Are they gonna are they gonna be seated? Are they gonna be conversating? Are they gonna feel intimidated? Are they gonna feel claustrophobic? Is the vibe gonna be intense? So sorry, let me just roll into another question that give genesis to the things that I'm like expressing now. Because the first exhibition, which happened in 2020, the summer of 2020, December, that's where you and I met, in a very uncandid way, was we had gotten to this house, and I just saw a group of young people just existing amongst beautiful art, and the energy felt so young. It felt so comfortable, safe. So much like diversity of kids from Cape Town and Joburg. And I think that connection, or that realization for me, happened there, that we actually very much connected. As much as we grow up in the coast, the kids in Joburg are actually very much connected to what we do and how we like. And obviously there's a difference in experiences and reference points, but you creating that space was able to bridge those gaps, you know, from a minor scale, and I think you don't realize that the people that were there that on the first FEDE needed to meet, and because of that because of that exhibition, so much has happened out of that. I think I just wanted to give you flowers on that, because I mean, like, there's not a lot of spaces and like places where black kids can exist in Cape Town and be themselves. Obviously there's been change since, but you were one of the first people amongst like our brothers, the Broke Boys, that were able to open a channel that allowed us to, you know, have something we can call ours. I'm just a fan and admirer of art, and I think through that exhibition, I got to learn so many things about the space in a very relaxed and relatable way, because I could identify with the artist. I could also identify with the places, with the people that was in the room. Can you please like take us through that first exhibition and how you were able to just like bring it all together in such a wholesome manner?
Damn, like yo, as Uri Ngacho, there's like so many things popping up in my mind. I don't know if we'll even have enough time to like touch on all of these things, because I think it's important stuff. But anyway, before I answer your question, I just want to quickly go back to that thing of empathy.
For sure.
With me, like trying to be empathetic, it's weird for me to even understand, but it's kind of something where I have to start with myself. Like I have to analyze how I feel in exhibition spaces or in gallery spaces, and figure out what would I like to be different. And I think before I put myself in other people's shoes, I need to like figure out how I feel in my own shoes first, and from that, I think that informs the curating. But now to speak on like everything you just spoke on, the whole link between Joburg and Cape Town, creating like spaces for black people to exist freely. Firstly, I think the link between Cape Town and Joburg is something I'm being like somewhat passively, but also like very intentional about, because the first show it was like a split between artists from Joburg and artists from Cape Town. Maybe that also is just because of how I am someone who understands both these spaces. So I think, I can speak on them because I come from both of them. And I want to see what a linkage between the two of them can do, like what that can bring, because they're so different, and I don't think we see emerging between them like quite often. This is something, I don't know if you remember in the panel discussion like that we just had.
Yes.
Carol asked this question of
Yes.
like, what are people hoping to see between the two cities?
Wow.
And I think, it's like a very like weird, unknown third space that we haven't explored, and it's something I really want to explore.
I love that you're calling it a third space, but continue.
What did I want to say? The whole thing of creating spaces for black people to exist, especially in Cape Town. Makama and I talk about this all the time. Makama's gonna come up perhaps a few times. Makama's one of my closest friends. Creatively, we've worked together in so many things. We designed this collection together. He's always part of the team in putting FEDE together. But anyway, we talk about this all the time in terms of we want to be able to exist in nice spaces, but whenever we go to those spaces, it's very difficult to identify with them because we don't see people who look like us, and we're like, why? You know what I mean? Why is there a distance between just nice interiors and black people? I don't think that's obviously the world is set up the way it is, but I think we want to see that change. And I guess with FEDE, that first FEDE, it was a manifestation of that, of creating a really beautiful space that is very welcoming, that allows people to come in and exist. And it's not at all saying it's a black space, but it is very open to black people because it's very open to me. So I think just as a result. Anyway, I don't want to ramble, but I just want to create spaces that feel cool, that look cool. I do realize, though, this is something I've been thinking about as FEDE as an idea and as a concept and as a body and a project, as it grows and it becomes larger, it's likely to become a lot more difficult to make the spaces feel inclusive and I don't know, cool, for lack of a better word, because it's larger. So you kind of open room for people to make it what it is. So with the first one, it was much smaller than the current one right now.
Yeah.
And it was a lot easier to make it feel that
homely,
that comfortable.
Yes.
So it's going to be a challenge, but it's something I want to always have be a part of it, because it speaks true to its identity and how I want art spaces to feel like, because I don't want it to be these spaces where you come in and you don't really feel like you have the chance to really connect with the arts because you're too busy dealing with this idea of how you're like the only black kid, or like I don't know, you probably can't buy, so like why even here? You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you don't want to. Of course, we want people to buy, but we wanted to connect to the human experience and in essence connect to human beings.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
In your first exhibition, hey, don't know what's happening with my pronunciation there. I think
Relax.
it's manpuza manzi, boy. Relax, manpuza manzi. In that first FEDE show, one of my favorite pieces of you is a piece called Emuva. You had, obviously in South Africa, it's a known scene to see black workers or underskilled workers, traveling on a pickup truck in what they call in international terms, but in South Africa, it's called a bakkie, and your representation of that scene was a family dynamic. There were mothers, there were kids, there were fathers, perhaps uncles too. Was that intentional, and what inspired that piece?
So the thing is, that piece, before I painted it,
it's my favorite piece.
Thank you. It's actually it's like sitting in my bathroom as we speak.
Okay, we'll chat about that.
Like on the wall, like.
Oh, okay.
But I was working in my brother's house. He had let me turn one of the rooms into my studio. And I was looking outside and I saw this van in Lula with like, I think, like labo uncle Kunduchani.
Yeah.
And I think it was, if I remember correctly, so a bunch of them were like in the back of the van.
Sure.
And I thought of how like, because I see that all the time, and because before, like a few years ago, I was trying to like mess with photography, which is something that happens to a lot of people, and especially when you come to Cape Town, you get a phone camera. Anyway, I'd see that all the time, and I'd want to take a picture of it whenever I saw it, but it feels very like invasive, like people are busy.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, and I was now that I was a painter at that time, that gave me that room to be able to depict whatever, and that scene specifically. But anyway, not to digress, that's something that like you see all the time where it's like typically a white guy, we are drive up and in the back is like a bunch of, like it's a lot of black people. And it metaphorically, I think it spoke true to like kind of what's just the hierarchies that exist in society where black people are like in the back end or at the bottom, or you know what I mean? Like they're the ones doing the hard manual labor, whereas the bros in the front or the bros in the boardroom. You know what I mean? Just that whole hierarchy. So I just wanted it to speak to that. But in terms of making it a family, it wasn't like Amachita or something. Like it was different people, kids, Abu Magogo, in the back of the van. That was just to make it about people, not so much about labor. It was just to make it about people and to speak to how, as people in this society, black people tend to be immover. Hence the title.
Wow.
I don't think it's a complex thing to wrap your mind around, because it's just like, it's in your face.
For sure.
Especially like if you live in Cape Town. If you walk down Bree Street and with like the string of restaurants and you see all the people sitting at the tables look a certain way and all the people serving look a certain way. I used to live in Claremont in this like super white neighborhood, and going to Woolworths used to trip me out, because the people who are buying their nice like meal packs and whatever look a certain way, and the people at the till look a certain way. So it was in my first few years of uni, so that was just like understanding myself in the context of this world. Like I was like, yo, where do I fit in this situation? You know what I mean? But yeah, that's what that piece was about.
Oh man, damn! I definitely get the culture shock that coming to Cape Town like brings. And it's like very, very clear. It's not a situation where you're gonna see it the second week, the third week. When you get here, that's the vibe you get immediately. With that being said, do you feel like it's important as a painter to include South African nativity in your work?
I think that question is I think that's a very weird question.
Why? Why do you think that is?
Also, I get why that question might be valid.
I think I get why you say it's weird.
No, because it's like it suggests that as like a black painter, that's what your paintings are supposed to be about.
For sure.
It's like now I can't paint like a bouquet of roses or whatever because mine is supposed to speak about indigenous people, and that isn't the case. But at the same time, it's weird, the whole race relations thing. When Ashraf Jamal touched on this in the panel discussion, and they were talking about how race politics is becoming like something that's
a byproduct.
I can't necessarily remember what was being said, but it's just like it's weird to like, I get that race relations as a concept is overdone, and we've spoken about it so many times.
Yeah,
we can touch on black portraiture, then we can go to talk about how in Joburg that's like the thing. But at the same time, it's like, as a person living in this world, as an observer, it's hard not to talk about it.
For sure.
Because you're like faced with it so much.
Every day.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, also for like your own peace, I also don't want to be painting that all the time. Because like I said earlier, life encapsulates so much more. But at the same time, we realize that the world still has a long way to go for equality.
When I speak of black, South African activity as not just the emblems of struggle. I'm talking about the celebration of our people, our cultures, so many different languages, tradition, so many holidays, heritage that resides there. I don't primarily box it in the conversation of inequality and like, black power, black empowerment, and that whole political chat that can make artists feel boxed in. When I say South African nativity, I include South Africa at large,
Yeah,
because I do believe that it's a superpower that we're South African. That's our biggest superpower.
Sure.
I don't know if you feel the same.
I do feel the same.
I know you feel the same.
And we're in such a like beautiful moment right now. Like, there's so many things happening here.
Yeah.
Like, the world is looking at this place, and and I think we've known it, but haven't known that like it's like how much value is in it.
For sure.
I might not answer your questions exactly, like, but anyway, what's really beautiful about that, the thing of South Africans, like being South African, being a superpower. I think, and this is something I've thought of in the context of like exhibition making. I feel like as just Tina, as Abantu, we aren't like people who exhibit our greatness. It's like even how art becomes a part of our life, but it's not something that we intrinsically decide to monetize or like make money off of. It just becomes a part of our life. And I see this like far away, and I see this close by. I look at this in my my dad. Taimalami is a very creative individual, but he's also like someone in like with a science background. So maybe, I don't know,
similarities anyway, there.
Yeah, but he's like a very creative person, and like my house has a personality and an artistic personality. But for him, he doesn't look at it as art. He's just like, I don't know, he's just doing things to make the house look beautiful, to make the garden look beautiful, but it's not even art. He doesn't regard it as art, so he wouldn't exhibit it to like sell it to the world as a commodity, as something to make money off of. And I'm trying to understand why there's that mentality, even in like actual contemporary artists. Andile Jalvane,
yes,
Southern Kill,
yes,
ceramicist,
yes,
amazing artist. I remember watching his interview with Friedman Bender, and he was talking about how growing up he never thought about like the things he does as art. That was just him engaging in his culture. So for us, like, we are an incredibly artistic people with like incredibly like Fananuk Jiva, dog, like Seth Jiva, and it's like incredible, but no one considers it as an art, 'cause it's like it's something that we just pick up and we just do. But I think like right now we're like realizing the power in it.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm just glad to exist in this time right
now.
When we're realizing our power so much.
Thank you so much for that, bro.
It's
boy, like when I'm having this conversation with you, so many like things are going through my mind. For one, the way we met was also like very like key and symbolic in my journey, because after the first exhibition, we had concluded that like this exhibition needed to be or encapsulate way more than what it was, And I remember you and I were talking about making a docu-film for FEDE, which we shot across Joburg and Cape Town. But I think what people don't realize that like that journey or that time, and this was might have been the beginning of 2021. We were very much still like figuring out like how we were gonna go about this, and having meeting all the artists of which I'm very good friends and have personal relationships with each of them in such an amazing way. Hence, I was like stressing the fact that like those meetings and that those intersections and like those connections that FEDE brought was so.
So essentially, you're talking about the documentary now.
No, yes, I am talking about the documentary, but I'm also, because the documentary wouldn't have been a thing if you never had that exhibition, you know. So with that film, you know, of which we'll probably like put out in the next 20 some years, I feel like the FEDE story is just beginning, and we'll just continue documenting. For those who know, will know why I say that. That might seem very selfish, but I think the sacredcy and the importance of all of those conversations that are had there, that were had in that piece, was so truly moving. I might be exaggerating with the number of years, but take me through that process, my brother. With the team that you were working with, in Hately, what were your intentions in the making of what we call, I don't even want to put the title out there, but the filmmaking, the film side of FEDE and the documenting side of FEDE before we get into the second exhibition.
Okay, yeah, no, I like how you asked that question in terms of like the film side of FEDE. I just as a person, I really love film. I think as an art form, it is like incredible. Maybe it also has to do with how like living in town, in like, or in the city rather, in Cape Town, there's always like filming going on like
Every day.
dog.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's so crazy to me. It's like, cause like outside just my apartment building, I'll just pass a film set and it's like happening right here, and it's, which is one of those things that I'm always thinking about, contrasting Sakana to Cape Town, and I'm like, yo, dog ikasi mawuphume ejardini, and like it's just like, it's just crazy to me that I can just walk out my apartment and there's like a film crew here. I just think that's crazy. But anyway, what I was saying is, I think film as a discipline is so incredible. How it's so multifaceted, how it takes so many people, so many things to put together this one cohesive thing, which can make you feel, can make you understand, can teach you, like, it's just beautiful. So it's something I really want to engage with, and what I love about FEDE is that it allows me to engage with all these other kinds of creative disciplines that aren't necessarily my thing, but I can get into them. Like even with FEDE, with putting together the exhibition, like with the last one being in a house, got to work with interiors. I love like chairs.
You do.
Bro, you know, dog,
You do.
like getting to mess around with chairs, with furniture, with this previous exhibition, this current exhibition, the panel discussion was furnished by Crema Design, and I went there with Carol, and we were there like picking out chairs, moving around, and I was like, yo, this is so mad, the fact that I get to do this.
Tell people about Carol. Just give all these names you're dropping is very key individuals.
Carol's amazing. I love Carol. Carol is a designer and an architect. Can we name names? But anyway, Carol designs for Smaak Gallery in Cape Town, and Carol's a close friend of mine, an amazing human being. But anyway, she just helped me out with a bunch of things in terms of FEDE, and in terms of like the furniture aspect of this panel discussion, she was integral. But anyway, bringing it back to film and how it's just a multifaceted thing, FEDE allows me to engage with that. So I want to be able to communicate ideas through film, because also it allows the message to go beyond the borders, to cross the seas, and like anyone in the world, because the internet is so amazing. It connects us. So I think being able to express what FEDE is through film is something that I really want to keep engaging with. And yeah, it's something, that's why the documentary is a thing. That's why it's gonna come out, and so on. Yeah.
No, beautiful, man. I think I find it really fascinating that you're using FEDE as this vehicle to explore so many different passions of yours, as not just the curatorial aspect, nor is not just about the painting aspect, nor is just not about, you know, creating space to exist aspect, but it's really just a place where you can just uncover so many different parts of yourself.
Dog, FEDE is school for me, hey? Honestly, because I mean,
Say that again.
FEDE is school for me.
Thank you.
It's my
Thank you.
like training in practice.
Thank you.
Because there's so many things that it encapsulates in terms of like putting the exhibitions together. That takes so much. Like we've got graphics, we need to communicate things, we need to have graphic designers. I'm not a graphic designer, and through that I get to learn in terms of graphics. Like I work with Tiffany, who designed from the previous exhibition, Kentani and Reef, who designed in this exhibition. I learn from these people, even Carol. Like I learn from these people through the things that need to happen for FEDE that I'm not an expert in, but we need to bring these experts in. And through that, I learn so much, and it's like incredible.
Beautiful, bro. I love how you put it as FEDE is school for me. Like I relate to that so much.
Yeah.
Maak plan is school for me too, bro. Siske, la boy.
Yeah.
Like, and it's something that kids need to realize, that you need to turn your aspirations and your goal into an ecosystem of school to what you understand, you know. School is not something that you can go buy and go learn at a tertiary anymore, but school is just a mental shift that happens within.
I mean, it still is.
It still is. No, don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
definitely.
Obviously, the institution obviously has a merit and a curriculum of how, you know, this thing is set for you to learn. But I think inherently as creators and people that occupy the art space and swimming in a lifestyle of constant unpredictability, constant changes, constant self-reflection and uncovering of like self, and you can't buy that. You can't teach that. It's a contributive effort of doing it every day, living it every day. Like
you learn on the job.
it's deep, bro. FEDE is deep, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to go like I don't want to sound delusional in my expression, but like I mean, bro, like I get you when you say it's school, my brother. Like this is school. You're learning on the job and you're teaching yourself everything and more, you know?
Yeah, because I mean, it's interesting and also weird that we're touching on school now.
Yeah.
But I think schooling, as like in general, I have like a bit of, I'm like, there are parts of like school as just an institution, especially in your like foundation level.
For sure.
Which I think it's kind of weird that perhaps I need to do some research about this. But it's like also I'm just observing. I think it's just really interesting, but also weird that the structure of school has remained the same for like time. And I think it's based on military practice, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure. But like how it's formed in terms of just people with an authority figure in front relaying like information and knowledge, that has been the template for years. And I think it's like weird. We've come so far. There's so many advancements. It's like, I mean, of course, also money is a chat because like it takes money to make advancements, to make it like interactive or whatever. But I think, yeah, like the template being the same for so long, I'm curious as to why there isn't changes. Speaking of templates, I think FEDE in itself is also like very curious as to why templates are what they have always been in terms of exhibitions, in terms of exhibitions being what they have always been. I get that it works probably maybe for to cater for like curators, to cater for like collectors and buyers and those, you know, those people who are so integral to these institutions. However, I mean, art, bro, here's the thing. Art exists outside of the art industry. Art is a part of like human nature. It's like we express as human beings. So as just a concept, it exists outside of the industry, right? And I get that the industry is there to facilitate the transactions in it, but I think it should also just make room for how this thing is just like how there can be so much more in terms of how we go about it. And I think the template of a gallery space it being what it has always been, like you going to any fair, and I just realized that a lot of fairs look exactly the same, like Cape Town Art Fair and a fair in like Mexico. You could almost swear you're in the same place. You know what I mean? And it's like how, you know what I mean? And art, I said this in the first thing, as part of the curators note of the first exhibition. Kuti art is the birthplace of, I think, what did I say? Like innovation and something like that. I'm not sure what I said. But it's, I think that is still true. Like, so, which means we need to constantly be innovating and finding out new modes of like communication, and in that communication, how we present art and how we allow people to consume art. So the like FEDE is meant to kind of work with the template, but also figure out new ways of kind of representing how the exhibition space looks, and in that, kind of allowing you to interpret it and take it in new ways, in more ways. And what that does, it lets more people into the space, you know what I mean?
And make it more accessible.
Yeah.
Communicating like it in a very digestible manner, relatable manner. I get you fully.
Yeah, because also, I mean, I think we have, like, as Africa, I think we have very little say in terms of, and I'm just speaking in terms of like, because if you look at like museums and big art institutions, like our governments don't invest a lot in that. Like if you go to the Western world, those institutions are a bit more of a thing.
I think there is money for that and those investments in our countries.
No, there is. Just like comparatively.
I got you.
No, there is. There definitely is.
For sure.
Not trying to like come at the Department of Arts and Culture.
Maybe it's also a mismanagement thing, but that's also another conversation.
That's
for sure.
Chat.
Sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
But anyway, just like figuring out how else can we do this thing.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
For sure. No, I get you 100%, my brother. It's an ongoing conversation, you know, and I think you starting what you started is a constructive step into, you know, reaching that place of we're in a good space now, because I think with the induction of like the second FEDE, you were like a talking point like for the whole week, and I think most people didn't maybe like, you know, grasp the first like, you know, exhibition as it was a very like small, curated in deep COVID, deep COVID, like intimate and like, you know, intimate like close vibes, but like with this one it was more of a open, you know, invitation to all sorts of people. And how was that week of the opening? How was that? How was those panel discussions? What was the feeling like? Do you remember some of the conversations you had that morning with yourself? Can you take me through that feeling, my brother, of finally seeing everything that you've worked so hard for, sacrificed so much for, come to life?
Hey dog, I think when the preview of the exhibition happened, this was like in April, maybe 3 weeks ago. That day, it was a roller coaster of emotions. Obviously, I think with like putting anything together, there's so much anxiety, because also with me, I'm a very like I analyze and I critique, and this is towards myself as well. So I wanted everything to be perfect. But then, the doors opened and people showed up like on time. Like at 6, people were there, which was like, people are punctual. But anyway, it was so beautiful. And I remember just at the end of the night, or like when it was, as it just progressed, I was like, this is one of the best days of my life. And
wow.
I like that I feel this way. This has been the track record with just the exhibitions, because when the first one happened, I was like, this is one of the best days of my life.
Wow.
And then when the preview happened for this one, I was like, I felt the same way, just at a larger scale, because it was a larger exhibition. But it made all the doubts kind of go away, because at the beginning of this year, I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was trying to get into institutions as like a curator or as an artist or as like an art worker, and none of that was like working out. So it was like, damn, I guess I need to like bet in myself and like bet on these ideas that I have, and like seeing it come together through this exhibition. I've just like with close friends, I've just been saying it was the coming together of like all the aspirations, all the hopes, all the planning, all the dreams. Because like I'm a very, like my sister, I don't know if you remember that advert, Uvuyo. My sister always calls me Vuyo, because like I'm a big dreamer. Anyway, to seeing my dreams come and become a reality for me is just like the best thing, you know. Because I always say I do some of the things I do for my younger self, because my younger self didn't perceive any of this to be. I'm not like I haven't done that much, right?
It's the beginning.
Yeah, it's the beginning. But like my younger self wouldn't have seen any of this to be possible. So I'm like, yo, dog, like I'm quite happy. I'm very happy, and this is like only the beginning. I'm a very young person. I still have a lot of ideas, and the future holds more. I always say that the future holds more.
Oh man, thank you for that, bro. I think everybody could feel, you know, the honesty, the sincerity, the empathy of, you know, that curation.
That surprises me. Like people always say when they are in the space or when they have been in the space, people will be like, yo, like it felt so good. It felt very genuine. For the first one, Carol was like, the crowd was very well curated, which was like an interesting analysis of it, of like the people really making it like something that feels fulfilling. Because I mean, that is an intention. That is something I hope for. I hope that people feel safe and that people feel like the space holds them well. And people say that that is what happens. And I for me, that's like when I hear things like that, I'm like, okay, no, spanile, job well done. Like, of course, we're trying to like the art, you being able to interact with the art should come from that, in my opinion. Like you feeling like you're able to resonate and connect with the space and connect and resonate with FEDE and what we're trying to do.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
No, 100%, my brother. Well done on that exhibition, bro. Thank you for putting that together. Thank you for also having key players like Mr. Ashraf Jamal, Dada Kanyisa, Gensani, the lady from Southern Guild, Lily, right?
No, that's Kelly Berman.
Kelly Berman. Am I missing anyone that was on the panel?
Did you say Dada Kanyisa?
I did say Dada Kanyisa.
I mean, apart from them, like there were a lot of people from like
them having the conversation,
and
having the conversation and having an open discussion with young people who don't necessarily have the information of the space. You know,
it was meant to be like very educational.
Exactly. That's what I mean when I'm saying thank you for that. You know, I think I made this known to you quite early. That's what stuck out. Apart from the beautiful like art curation, just like having that panel discussion and having kids come in a relaxed environment where they can just ask so many like questions that they, you know, and get that information from directly in such a light-hearted manner. You know, I found that so beautiful and crucial, and I can't wait until you release those discussions for everyone else to see it. You know, and yeah, bro, I think like what was there any particular high moment out of that evening?
I think like essentially what you just said, because when I say I try to do things for my younger self in a way, it's because like my younger self, like I said earlier, didn't know how to get in these spaces, didn't know what they look like. So it was very important for me to have like a very educational and insightful conversation with people who are working within the industry. Ashraf Jamal, who's like I have one of his books. You have the same book, I think.
Yes.
And
Ashraf Jamal is Mira Jean's father, good friend of ours. So we're shooting Mira Jean's episode. Sorry.
Anyway, and like reading some of his writings and reading.
Oh man, what's the title of it again?
In the World, essays on contemporary South African art, I believe.
Yo, those chapters are so extensive.
I gave I gave the book to Ntabi. Ntabi's reading it now.
Wow. Shout out. Shout out.
Like just being able to read the book and get all those insights and what that teaches me, I feel like is really important for like young kids, I guess, to be able to have access to that information and that knowledge, so that the space was meant to be that. Like Dada being a practitioner, a maker of things, who has worked in the space and is still working in the space and know what it looks like, being able to speak in that space. Kelly Berman coming from such a large institution. Southern Guild is one of my favorite galleries for like many reasons. And so to be able to have them kind of like offer that insight to people who are like curious and who want to get in, you know, for me that was very, very important. But what was your question?
My question was, what was your high moment? And I must
My high
yeah,
moments.
in
that
the
was
evening.
that was
Yeah,
pretty high. Yeah,
yeah,
that was a pretty high
yeah,
moment. Yeah,
yeah.
that was really cool.
No, man, absolutely beautiful, bro.
Also the music
Of
was
course, and this time it was less about furniture and more about music. Take me through that. Shout out to the other radio for
shout out to the other
yeah,
radio.
the whole team.
The whole
Like,
team. Shout out to Ghost. That being the venue.
yes,
With the other radio, we wanted, like, obviously with like collaborating with a space that is with music that is so
for
central
sure,
to it. It made sense to have music be a part of this exhibition.
100%.
How like the radio series came about. With me introducing it, going on air, which for me was like the best thing. Like I had so much, because I love music, dog.
You do.
Like, I listen to music whenever I do anything, which I think a lot of people can relate to. So being able to be on the radio, just playing some of my favorite songs and talking about FEDE, talking about my art, that was like a very beautiful experience. But anyway, that was that was the first part of the radio series, and then following that was Tony Gum, Francesco Mbele, aka Franadilla, and Lou from Themes and Thems. So yeah, they came through with like live sets and they played, and it was like beautiful.
Hey man, bro, tick, 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 tick. Full circles, full circles, full circles. Absolutely beautiful. Literally. Hats off, bro. Master act, master class. Like, there's no other explanation for explaining it all. You know, put your exemplary like curation skills into words, but it's only the beginning, bro. I'm happy that you constantly aware of that, and I want you to know that you play a very crucial role in this thing that we call, I don't know what we call this thing that we're so passionate about. And I think your role, you've made a very, very clear identification of what your role is, and we need you to continue doing what you're doing, bro. It makes my heart full that all of my friends and my brothers are playing their role, and innately we're all playing our role, and then the growing of that becomes so easy. It can be so easy, but it can be also very, very hard. You know what I'm saying? But like innately, like if everybody's playing that role, like this thing is constantly gonna move, bro. And like the kids are gonna forever have a reference point to what it means to love yourself and love your passions and choosing yourself in chasing those, you know, those dreams and passions that you're passionate about. But I want to take it to a lighter note. I've seen a couple of self-portraits of yourself, and I want you to explain, like, to me, like, how has you painting yourself or seeing yourself in a creative space, or I know you call it a third space, but I wouldn't quote that as a third space because it's you, it's a first space. But how's that creative process of like self-portraiture, bro, and how you view yourself as a man?
I think I firstly want to just quickly touch on just everything you're talking about, of like everyone taking their space or their role, because we've had so many conversations with people who are practitioners in different spaces about like really building these industries, and within these industries our enterprises can grow. We've had conversations with Imran of Asa Sadan, which is like incredible as a fashion house that has just come to be in South Africa. Reef was part of that conversation. We need to honor Reef with his works in the space right here. Reef having been part of like the FEDE exhibition. But anyway, like we've had so many of these conversations about building this industry and how it's a collaborative effort.
And why we here today?
Why we're here today? You know what I mean? And especially in Cape Town, I feel like everyone realizes that like we're all connected, and the connections need to happen with it, like in a national scale. And I'm very like keen to see all of that happen. But to answer your question, please remind me what it was.
Self-portraiture. How you feel yourself? Yeah.
I don't do a lot of self-portraiture actually.
I think I saw.
Do a lot of self-portraiture.
Okay, sorry for. Why are you hanging me on the washing line?
No, look, that's probably why I didn't even remember the question, because it's like
I've definitely seen some self-portraits, my brother.
Self-portraiture.
And also, boy, you see what you're doing now.
Perhaps, perhaps the only kind of thing that I can say is self-portraiture is when the pieces speak to like the people in my life, and you can tell that there's like who like the person in this piece is very.
I get you.
Actually, damn, you're right. But also, my self-portraiture isn't at all. It's more self-portraiture like in like a metaphorical sense, not
Explain.
necessarily like if I have a mood or a feeling and I depict a character, that character will embody me and the mood that I'm feeling, but it's never like a very literal thing in terms of like my face or anything like that. You know what I mean?
I get you.
Yeah, if like there's in some of the pieces I've kind of depicted like isolation or loneliness or solitude, which is a space I tend to feel a lot, whether it's like maybe I'm feeling lonely or I'm intentionally trying to be within myself and in that occupier space that has just me, or simply put, solitude. So I'll represent that a lot in my paintings because it'll speak to how I'm feeling. Yeah. For me, that's the kind of self-portraiture I guess I've dabbled in.
I get you. Also, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, man. Yeah, man. In Hentley, bro, where do you see FEDE in the next 5 years?
Questions like this. Dog, this thing is like it's constantly redefined as it goes. I am constantly figuring out what it is and what it can be. For now, it's defined as a gallery, but I see it becoming more and being able to exist in other spaces. I define it based on its purpose. I can't like say what it is. I'll speak to like its purpose, what it does. Like housing a space for art, or man, I don't do too well with these kinds of questions, but I will just say that it is constantly becoming redefined in its purpose, trying to do more, bringing together different disciplines. At some point, we'll be saying architecture. You never know, but yeah, because those are my spaces of interest, and also those are spaces that encapsulate arts. You know what I mean? So we'll see where it goes.
Got you.
Yeah.
You speak a lot about your younger self and how, you always make moments, tie in what your younger self would be feeling or seeing you. What's that message that you will tell your younger self today?
Tell my younger self today. To like listen to himself. Yeah, I think I've written on this a bit in terms of like really listening to myself, because I think as a kid, I read this thing once that said when you're young, you already know what you're going to be. And some people forget, but then some people remember. I feel like I'm one of those people who fortunately remembered, and I'm very glad for that. And I think once I realized that I actually am an artist, I actually am an art practitioner, I wanted to run with it. I wanted to do this thing like fully, you know what I mean? And so I think what I'd say to my younger self is listen to yourself, like, because I think as you grow up, like you get so much messaging from the world, whether it's like the school you're in and like the people in your life and your family, people who love you. It's so crazy. Sometimes your naysayers are people who love you. Like I've learned that in like the past couple of years, which is like a crazy thing, you know what I mean? And it's something that is like kind of chaotic confidence, dog, in terms of like some of the decisions I make, everyone in my life being like, this is not a good decision. And you have to be like, I feel this, I know this, and that's like God in you speaking. So you have to like listen to yourself. Some might say it's like a naive take or whatever, but in like so far, I think like listening to yourself is the best thing you can do for yourself. So that's what I'd say to my younger self.
They say we all born artists, but it's just difficult to stay one. And with that, I thank you, my brother.
Yeah, man, I'm
Ah,